Welcome back, guys. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, we do know that South Africans have been urged to strongly resist Eskom's latest request for a 36% tariff hike in public hearings to be held by the regulator NERSA. Now, since 2007, Eskom has increased tariffs by an unbelievable 800% and is on course to making electricity a luxury that most people will never be able to afford. Now, what is behind these annual massive costs, and can they be justified every single year? Now, I am joined in studio by energy expert Mthunzi Luthuli, who will actually help us interrogate that question. Good evening, Mr. Luthuli. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on INX Prime Live.
Good evening, Zarif, and good evening to the viewers.
No, it's a pleasure having you, sir. I just want to get straight into this conversation. Now, I know a lot of people are very interested in it. Can we buy Eskom's explanation? They came out to say, it's all cost reflective at the moment. It has to increase. But the most important or highest source of electricity comes from coal, right? Can we say that the price of coal is shooting up, or is Eskom not really being very honest with us about these hikes?
Okay, I think let's first interrogate the statement that the tariffs have to be cost reflective. Eskom likes using this as if, it's a justification. Yes, tariffs have to be cost reflective, but what they don't tell you is that you don't just consider any costs. It's the prudent costs that have to be considered. Now, when you look at Eskom's costs, many of those costs are not prudent, okay? So, for instance, in the tariffs that they apply for, they want a return on the assets that and the power stations that they've built. Now, take Medupi and Kusile power stations, for instance. Those power stations, by the time they are fully completed, they would have cost the taxpayer twice what they were originally budgeted for. Okay, and that's because of the corruption that's been going on. It's because of all the inefficiencies, etc., at Eskom. Now, those are not prudent costs, and therefore the electricity user and the taxpayer should not be paying for those costs. And so if Eskom says no, they incurred those costs, and therefore the electricity users should pay for them, and it's wrong, because they are not prudent costs. So yes, tariffs must be cost reflective, but you only take into consideration prudent costs and not wastage and corruption and all of that.
And I think that's one of the biggest issues we have in South Africa, more specifically at a SEO like Eskom as well, and something that definitely needs to be rectified. I just want to touch on another thing. If you're looking at, okay, cool, these tariffs have been increasing. I gave you that stat now, 2007 until today, an 800% increase. That's incredible. It's horrible at the same time. Yeah. They're clearly getting high revenues, right? But why do you think until today they can't make a profit as Eskom? Why is that the case?
Okay, let me just, it's a very broad question, what you're asking. But firstly, Eskom is not making a profit because partly, in my view, Eskom is being, it's been used as a cash cow by a lot of private sector players, okay, who have sectorial interests. And so Eskom is being milked left, right, and center, okay? So that's the first reason. The second reason, really, I think, is just poor management. There is no cost cutting, and there aren't any incentives, either in the pricing system or otherwise, to make sure that Eskom is run properly and that Eskom manages its costs properly.
No, without a doubt. And I just want to touch on something. You mentioned all of these things, and we're speaking about, it not being prudent. Corruption is a huge issue, wastage, mismanagement of funds, all of these issues. But I wanted to know, in your opinion, why is it double-digit inflation? Because we're speaking about a 60 63% increase. That's a massive increase. If you can, hear a government or a state-owned enterprise saying, 5%, 3%, 2%, I think it's a lot easier for South Africans to tolerate and understand. But the fact that it's double digits, just wanted to get in your opinion, why do you think it's been happening so much over these different financial years where we're seeing double-digit inflation? Yeah. Clearly, it's not acceptable, right?
Yeah. So I'll be very frank with what my view is. The problem here is that our government is not governing and acting in the interests of South Africans. Okay, our government is acting in the interests of private players, most of whom are white and foreign. Okay, and so what is happening with the electricity prices is that they are being increased deliberately with the liberalization of the electricity market to bring in private players. The objective is to make sure that the prices are high enough for those private players that come in to make exorbitant profits. That's what's happening. It's ridiculous for Eskom to, after an 800% increase over these last 15 years, to come and say they want a 36% increase again. So this is not because Eskom needs that money to run their organization. No, the idea is to increase the general price levels of electricity so that when private players come in, they can make huge profits at the expense of the poor people of this country. And remember, we live in a country that is already the most unequal society in the world. Not one of the most, it is the most unequal society in the world. So this is this is treasonous, what government is doing and what Eskom is doing. And I think that people should fight this. In fact, people should take to the streets. This is nonsense now, what's happening.
And I agree with you completely. I think we're getting a lot of comments and questions coming in from social media. We have a question from Jessica, or more of a comment. She's saying, what's the point of having a GNU if they're not going to hold each other accountable to make sure things like this don't happen in state-owned enterprises? I don't know, how do you feel about a comment like that?
I think she's 100% right. I think that clearly the reliance on the checks and balances that are supposed to be inherent in the political system, they're not working. Okay, and I think that it's time now that people should take this thing into their own hands. I think they should take into the streets, and I think they should demonstrate their disgust at what's happening.
I mean, we also have another comment coming in from Tatu in particular. He was just saying that, you can clearly see now from all the retailers out in South Africa that people are fed up of, waiting for the government to be consistent and Eskom to be consistent. People are going and taking out loans and, taking debt to be able to put solar panels in their houses and to buy generators just so that they can move off the grid. I wanted to know, in your opinion, for South Africans in particular, do you think it's something that's advisable for them to get off the grid so that, is there any benefits to getting off the grid, and what are the limitations of doing something like that?
Yeah, look, getting off the grid has its pros and cons. Okay, obviously, if you're off the grid, you're not subject to load shedding or load reduction, and you're less susceptible to these shocking price increases. Yeah. However, if, for instance, you are on solar, and you have prolonged days where the sun is not there, then you are then forced to get supply from either your municipality or from Eskom. Okay. In that case, and Eskom and NERSA have not actually developed this thing fully, but if everybody does this, okay, what will happen eventually is that Eskom will not supply your normal day-to-day energy. There will be what you might call a supply of last resort. Okay, there will be like a battery backup so that if people don't have electricity, then they can come in those times when either the wind is blowing or the sun is not shining or whatever. Now, when you do that, you pay a lot of money. Yeah, because it costs money to keep the systems running but not supplying, and only supplying for short durations of time. So it changes the whole structure of the industry. But another thing to add to that is that, you know, it's the people, it's the household that can afford it, which means the rich can move off grid, okay? And obviously, commercial businesses and some industrial businesses. But what about the poor people in the country, who, by the way, are the majority, okay, who can't go off grid? If it costs you 120,000 Rand or 150,000 Rand to put a decent solar system with a battery backup in your house, how is a person from Mshengville in Soweto going, where are they going to get that kind of money? So again, what is being done will benefit the rich and the businesses that can afford it, but the average black household and the average township business will not be able to go that route. And so we continue to perpetuate this inequality that is in our society.
Yeah, that's definitely something that needs to change. You know, just in closing, before we do let you go, I mean, we are getting more comments, and it's important for us to direct this conversation along what people are saying out there. You know, some people are agreeing with you completely and saying that, you know, we should go to the streets, and it's something that we should hold Eskom accountable for their, you know, their actions. But some people are saying that, you know, we didn't have load shedding for 6 months now. I guess this is just the cost of the change that needs to happen. You know, and there is now a new board in place. There is a new chairman in place, in particular at Eskom. What's your thoughts on that? Do you feel like, can the one be a compensation for the other in that sense?
No, I think it's nonsense. Firstly, we should never have had load shedding in the first place. Yeah. Okay, and so now we want to clap hands and praise a fish for swimming. You know, we should be having you know, a constant supply of electricity anyway. Okay, so it's not as if it's a favor that is being done for the country. No. Okay, so it's nonsense. The one cannot offset the other. Yeah, that is my view. People should take to the streets and people should demonstrate their disgust at what's happening. Another, maybe just one last point, very important point. You know, energy is crucial to a country's development, very crucial. In fact, if you look at countries around the world, the most developed countries happen to consume also the most energy. Okay, so provision of sufficient electricity and energy in general, okay, it goes hand in hand with the development of a country. Given what our government is doing and what Eskom is doing, okay, they're going to stifle the development of this country. Okay, and we know what that means. You know, it means you know, the country won't develop. People will we won't be able to deal with this unemployment. Businesses won't flourish, and so we will continue to stagnate or decline. In fact, okay, and so how we manage electricity and energy in general in this country is extremely important. We should be providing enough energy, which is the energy security aspect of this whole thing. We should be providing enough energy and at affordable costs so that people can, you know, flourish and the economy and the businesses can flourish. If we don't do that, we will stay where we are or we will decline.
Yeah, and we already have such a horrible unemployment rate, especially for young people. We can't afford to have, expensive electricity or these high tariffs that are cutting off most people from the market. I completely agree with you. But again, Mr. Luthuli, thank you so much for the insight, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on INX Prime Live.
You are most welcome.
Thank you, guys. That is Mr. Mthunzi Luthuli, who is actually an electricity expert, an energy expert, just sharing with us the very important information about this current 36% request that is made by Eskom in terms of a hike in that sense, a tariff hike. Just looking at also the fact that, it's been 800% since 2009 until today, where there has been that increase. And I think it's, definitely affecting a lot of businesses, a lot of people. And like he did mention, we're stopping or we're limiting the development of our own country, because the more electricity is used in the most developed countries. Now, we definitely want to see a change, and we hope to see one very soon. Now, on that note, we are going to take a quick ad break. We'll come right back.